2-1, you're live.
This is Matt Garrett Podcast 192 with a great guy named Jeff Diehl. How are you, Jeff? Been a long time since we've talked.
Hey, Brian, great. And how are you doing?
I'm doing great. So I wanted to ask you about your experience at CPAC this past weekend. So how did you first hear about CPAC when you first started out and how you got down? Let's start with that. So how did you first start out hearing about CPAC in the first place?
Well, CPAC is put on every single year. Conservatives around the country go to it. It's been in Florida for the last 2 years, but it travels around a bit too. And so people can go there, listen to a lot of great speakers, people who are elected to office, talk to media personalities from around the country who speak about conservative values every day. So it's a great chance to go and meet like-minded people, especially at a time when our country really needs to get back to focusing on American freedoms and liberty and making sure that government is not intruding on our personal lives so much. So when I got down to CPAC, one of the first speakers I got to see talk was Ron DeSantis, of course, the governor of Florida, who has made sure that he got the state reopened as quickly as possible after the pandemic, made sure he got kids back into schools right away, tried to block the vaccine mandates on employees so that they wouldn't lose their jobs if they made that personal health care choice. So it was really great and invigorating. And I'll tell you, everybody should go there at least once in their lifetime if you want to really get a chance to talk to like-minded people about the conservative values we share.
So I've never been there, CPAC. Do you think I would like, if I went there, I'd like it? Because I've never been to that event before. I'd like to go one day. But.
You would. I mean, it's not just the people who are speakers there. I mean, Donald Trump was the keynote speaker on the final day and Saturday, and the place was packed. I mean, you couldn't even get a seat in the room by the time it was all filled up. But the other thing that's there is you have vendors, you have groups that are there trying to promote their causes. So you had Moms for Freedom there. You had truckers that had just come from Canada that stopped through there and were on their way they were going to go back up to D.C. So, you really have a lot of concurrent stuff going on. People showing up there that are very active in pushing some of the values that, again, we all hold dear, which is, our right to our own freedoms, our Second Amendment rights, again, making sure that our kids are, when they're in the schools, they're not being indoctrinated. So it's just a chance. And I think, Brian, you would definitely love a chance to go there because you really, you meet so many great people, whether, like I said, elected officials or just activists all around the state that are always working hard to promote good candidates.
Now, I heard you on RSBN talking on Rest of Broadcasting Network yesterday on Saturday for that interview. That was awesome, by the way, when you talked to RSBN. I loved that.
Yeah. No, those interviewers, they really know what they're talking about. So when you get a chance to speak from Massachusetts, you can talk about the fact that, there are conservatives in the state. Most people look at Massachusetts and say it's a blue state. And I say to them, actually, we've had a Republican governor the last 22 out of the 34 years. So, we do need to have a Republican governor in the state to offset the very liberal, left-leaning, progressive legislature that always wants to continue to raise our taxes, to sort of infringe on our freedoms. And when they hear that Massachusetts has a strong conservative running with the endorsement of President Trump, they feel very, very glad to know that the movement's everywhere. And the other thing, I'll tell you is that right now we have 29 sitting Republican governors around the country. And I was at the RGA meetings, the Republican Governors Association meetings, about 4 weeks ago, and they predict that they could get to 36 Republican governors in this next election cycle. If that happens, you're going to see America finally come back, and it's going to be like that Reagan revolution back in the 80s. And, again, when Trump won in 2016, it's just going to be a big wave year like that. So I think this is an exciting time to be, in politics in America and specifically in Massachusetts.
Yeah. And let me ask you a question. Who was your favorite speaker at the event? If you had to pick one, because I like President Trump, obviously, I'm a big fan of him. But,
yeah. Well, there was a lot of great speakers. Sebastian Gorka was there, and everybody said that he had a fantastic speech. Mark Levin gave a speech. I actually thought Ron DeSantis, right at the beginning, was one of the best speakers because, again, Ron talked about how he didn't just say what he wanted to do. He did it as a governor and protected his citizens' freedoms. And I tell you, I think Ron DeSantis looks like he's getting ready to make a run himself someday. And I think it feels like President Trump wants to run again in 24, but don't be surprised if in 2028, Ron DeSantis runs to succeed President Trump if he was able to win that presidency in 24.
How do you feel about Truth Social coming on the market? That's a new media that Trump app launched on his own, Truth Social. Are you on there yet, or are you on Rumble yet? Because you need to get Rumble, I think, pretty soon. I mean, that's just what I think.
I know there's a lot of things. There's Parler, there's Navigator, I believe, or something like that. I think there's a lot of different social media platforms, and of course, we're trying to make sure our campaign covers a lot of them. We have great young folks on the campaign, students for Diehl that are organizing, and they're even doing things on TikTok. So you've got to be everywhere you can to spread the word, because as we know, the media is not our friend anymore, and places like Facebook and Twitter, they don't necessarily allow Republicans or conservatives to carry the message. So it is important to get out there. And the Truth platform that President Trump has put out there, I think that's going to be another good way for conservatives and Republicans to get that message out there without being filtered.
Did President Trump say to you, "Hello, Jeff, how are you? Nice to see you again," when you saw him at the event?
Well, he did say, and it's funny. I've got Corey Lewandowski working on my campain with me, and Corey said that Trump is very excited about our race. He thinks that this is one of those races that it's going to be a huge surprise for everybody. Not that we're going to win this, but that we're going to upgrade from a Republican governor now to one that is really conservative and did support the president. So yeah, I think he's considering this one of those rock star races that when we win this, the president will certainly be happy, and I think it'll show that his path to winning in 2024 is all but guaranteed. Because right now, if you watch the State of the Union speech with Joe Biden the other night, you can see that there is no unity in the country, and he's not bringing people together. Economically, we're really suffering. We're seeing gas rising incredibly high. Food is not available in some of the stores right now. Internationally, the Ukraine is being invaded by Russia. I mean, this president is doing nothing to try to keep world order and keep our economy steady. And I think that's going to reflect in not just the 22 midterm elections, but in 24 as well. So, yeah, this is an exciting time, and I think the President Trump is very much gearing up to run again, and we'll see. I think he's going to wait till after the midterms, but we should know fairly soon after that.
So, how did you first meet Corey?
Well, actually, Corey and I met back in 2016 when I went in support of Trump. I was at a New Hampshire rally, and I was in the basement with President Trump, and Governor Chris Christie from New Jersey at the time was there. Corey and Hope Hicks, who were his Trump's campaign team, they were in the basement as well. And I got a chance to meet the president back then, and then I got a chance to talk to Corey. And I had originally talked to Corey about my 2018 U.S. Senate race, but he had still was doing a lot of work with the president for the re-election in 2020, which unfortunately didn't happen. But after 2020, Corey became available. So I connected with him, and he said that he thought this was a winnable race and he wanted to be involved. So we got him on board a couple months ago, and it's exciting. I mean, he delivered the presidency back in 2016. I think he's going to make sure that this is a winning race for 22.
Now, have you ever met DeSantis before? Like, does he know who you are, like, as friends? Like, you guys are, you're a governor, but are you guys like friends, you and DeSantis, and like Chris Christie and Kristi Noem? Like, have you guys met each other in some event?
Well, I don't get a chance to see them often enough to perhaps call them friends, but we are certainly acquaintances. I mean, I was, like I said, at the RGA meetings a couple weeks ago. I got a chance to talk to Glenn Youngkin, who won that race in Virginia. And Glenn is a really down-to-earth guy who just did what I'm trying to do now, which is speak to the average voters in the state who just want government to back off, let them decide, their healthcare decisions for their family members. When Glenn Youngkin was able to, talk to those parents who want school boards to allow parents to be, part of the decision as to the curriculum, that really set a trend, not just in Massachusetts, but around the country. You're seeing a lot of states now, people running for school boards because they realize how important all those seats are, whether it's running for select board or city council in your town or board of health or school board. But of course, governor. I mean, governors are incredibly important. We found out that during the pandemic, the governors probably have more power than the presidency because they chose whether or not their states would open or close and how soon you could reopen. I think that's why it's going to be so critically important for people in Massachusetts to look at a governor's race as someone who's going to affect their pocketbooks. And back in 2014, I led the repeal of our gas tax being indexed go up automatically every year without a vote. That saved taxpayers billions of dollars then. And could you imagine the way gas is right now? It's looking like it's heading to $5 a gallon soon. And if that's the case, Massachusetts would have, the cost would have been enormous here in Massachusetts had I not led that repeal of that indexing of the gas tax. So a governor's race is incredibly important because you've got to have someone who is in there willing to stand up for the hardworking folks who are paying the bills and not just for some elite groups and lobbyists who are trying to continue to make more money off of government. So yeah, I consider them friends in that we're all trying to do the same thing, but at the same time, I'm looking forward to making my case here in Massachusetts and then joining the ranks of great Republican governors like DeSantis and Youngkin and many others. Kristi Noem. We've just got a great group of people out there serving. Chris Sununu in New Hampshire. Great people serving in office who are doing the right thing and standing up for our freedoms.
How did you first meet John Fredericks from Georgia? Because I see one there a lot too, talking to him.
To John who?
John Fredericks Radio. John Fredericks.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, John. John was nice enough. We were down there at CPAC, and he had me on back in 2018 when I was running against Elizabeth Warren. So he said, "Hey, jump on my show." In fact, he wants me to come on a regular basis. So if anybody listens to the John Fredericks show,
I do.
It's syndicated. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
It's it's got a website, JohnFredericksShow.com, and JohnFredericksRadio.com is the website. Go there and you can listen to it again. National perspectives about conservative leadership in the country. I think that it's important that you have all these broadcasters who have great experience. They may not be on. They can't get on things like CNN or MSNBC, but they can do their own shows. And now that we all can tune into podcasts or radio shows online, it's a great way that keeps the mainstream media from filtering the message. So John Fredericks is definitely a friend and someone I'll be on regularly with over the next year.
Why hasn't Gorka had you on his show, Sebastian Gorka? Why hasn't he had you on his show yet?
Yeah, I mean, Sebastian's schedule is pretty busy. He was not only doing a show, but he was also one of the speakers there. So, I think sometimes scheduling just keeps things from happening. But look, I think that when we win this governor's race, my goal is to get out there and continue to help more Republicans win, including the next president of the United States. I was very disappointed that our current governor didn't support President Trump in his re-elections. And I think that it's important for Republicans to stand together. We don't do it enough. And so, I will certainly go on a lot of these shows and talk to people around the country about how important it is for them to get engaged and continue the progress we're doing, because you need you don't need weak states. You need strong states as your neighbor. So I'm hoping Paul LePage goes for re-election up in Maine and wins there. I hope that we keep Sununu in as governor. And I think, Rhode Island, Connecticut, it would be nice to get a Republican governor in those states. So I want to, again, use the media and every opportunity I can to help promote Republicans, especially in governor's seats. I need a lot of strong partners to make sure that New England stays affordable and it's a place where you can, live, not leave. Too many people are going to Florida or moving out of the state for some other red state like Texas. We lost 50,000 residents in Massachusetts last year. 50,000 people left our state because it's become unaffordable and very oppressive with a lot of the regulations. So we lost Smith & Wesson, a great historical manufacturer that was out in Springfield. They're going to Tennessee, a red state where, the taxes and their beliefs about the Second Amendment are much stronger. So Smith & Wesson said, we're out of here. We've got an Attorney General, Maura Healey, who wants to get rid of our AR-15 manufacturing, which is 60% of their revenue, and they can't afford to stay here. So we need to have, again, better leadership even in Massachusetts, and then continue to have great governors all around the country.
Who is your favorite senator of all time, if you had to pick one?
Senator? Oh, that's a great question. Well, I mean, Charles Sumner, this goes way back to the Civil War times, but Charles Sumner from Massachusetts was the senator that gave a speech about anti-slavery, and it was such a strong speech. It was about he was speaking specifically to the Kansas referendum on whether it would be a slave state or a free state. And Preston Brooks, a South Carolina congressman, came into the chamber and beat Charles Sumner almost to death with a cane. The incident was called the caning of Charles Sumner. And I'll tell you, thankfully Sumner survived, came back to Massachusetts to recuperate. But that's how Republicans have been standing up for freedom when it comes to civil rights and slavery. They've stood up. Republicans have stood up for women's rights to vote in the 1800s. Republicans were big with Martin Luther King in the civil rights movement in the 60s. I tell you, Charles Sumner, I think way back when, probably didn't realize it, but he was setting the trend. He was one of the first Republicans, he and Lincoln, and they were setting the trend from the Republican Party of standing up to everything, whether it's physical abuse or all the names that you're called now as a Republican. You've got to stand up and be strong, and I think that's why Charles Sumner probably ranks for me as one of the top Republicans in the party.
How do you feel about Senator Tim Scott? Do you think he'd be a good Trump VP pick for 2024? A lot of people have said that.
Yeah, I mean, Tim Scott's great. It's hard for me to figure out who's going to be the potential vice presidential candidate for that ticket.
Yeah.
I think it's still really early. I think there's people like Kristi Noem out there making her. I think there's a lot of people that would be good partners. So I'm going to stay away from that for right now because I'm really still focused mostly on my race for governor, and that takes up just about all of the time. I've got a family to raise. I've got a job that I still work for, and then I'm running for governor at the same time. So I'll let the people who know better at that higher pay grade figure out who should be running for vice president.
So if you're governor of Massachusetts, will you get more ivermectin available for Massachusetts? Will you like one of your proposals as well? If you become governor,
I'm sorry. Will I do what's that?
Will you make ivermectin more available for people that don't have it, like for medicines?
Ivermectin, yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, it was really very, very strange to see that proven treatments for not just this COVID-19, but for the coronavirus strain in general,
yes,
which other countries have used successfully. It was blocked here in the country, and there's a lot of people that have suspicions that the pharmaceutical industry had a part in trying to make sure that over-the-counter low cost treatments would be sort of blocked or not distributed widely, so that there could be that effort to get the more expensive developed drugs that were from Moderna and Pfizer and all that. Look, I don't claim to be a scientist or fully understand all of that, but what I do know is that even the discussion about whether ivermectin or any of these other treatments was valid seemed to be getting blocked down, and that always makes people suspicious that there is something going on behind the scenes. So I know Joe Rogan with his radio show tried to at least have the discussion, and cancel culture seemed to want to shut him down when he asked all those questions, and that's suspicious. So it's not good when we're not willing to keep our minds open. And you have these people that say we need to follow the science on all this. Well, the science was showing us that this was a disease that was, it was a virus that was affecting mostly older folks, 70-plus-year-old people, and yet we locked down everybody and we kept kids in masks up until just the last week or so. Here in Massachusetts, at a time when we know that the kids were the least at risk. So the science seems to feel more like political science than it really is medical science when it comes to the treatment recommendations and a lot of the lockdown procedures that happen. So, I hope that we learned our lesson from this. I think there's going to be a lot of books written about the pandemic, and I think they're going to look back and realize that countries like Sweden, who didn't lock down, ultimately were much more successful, and states like Florida that also kept themselves open as quickly as possible were able to push through, create that herd immunity and get to a level where people could, go back to their regular lives much sooner. This has been a very interesting and I'd say scary times to see how much government decided they were going to take control over everything. Our healthcare, our schools, our businesses, they shut everything down, and they were the ones to tell us. And I'll tell you, there's an old saying, but it's true. the government that's powerful enough to give you everything in the world could take away everything that you want. So that's what we've done right now. We've really empowered government to be in control of every aspect of our lives. And in my opinion, the fight for 22 is not necessarily Republican or Democrat. It's about, big government versus we the people. And I think people want to get back to that individual freedom that we founded right here in Massachusetts back in 1776, that great time when our Revolutionary War gave us control over our own lives, our own destiny. And I think that's where people want to get back to again.
Now, you mentioned CPAC before. I want to get to that back for a second. I found that when Larry Kudlow spoke, he lacked energy. Did you? It was just me, but to me,
I think Larry Kudlow has a very low key approach to the way he talks in general.
Yeah,
I know. He's got a very dry sense of humor. He's an economist, so I don't think economists historically have been very exciting, high energy people. But I think Larry Kudlow, look, he sees this 22 election cycle as a very winnable cycle for conservatives. I think also very upset with the way the economy is going right now. The Federal Reserve still not handling interest rates, correctly. I mean, I think Larry Kudlow is working very hard to get the message out there that this is an incredibly important election cycle. So if he was low energy at all, it's probably just because he's leaving it all out on the field, trying to get that message out to everybody he can.
Yeah, no, and I'm not being critical. I'm just giving my opinion about him, what I thought of his speech. He was good. I would like to see a little more energy out of the guy. That's all. That's what I'm just trying to convey.
Maybe a little more coffee. Maybe that would help.
Oh yeah, very much so. And I wanted to ask you too. Why do you think Baker didn't support President Trump? Because you say he was a Republican, but he really wasn't. Why do you think he didn't support him the way that you do?
I don't know. I wish I knew the answer to that, because it really was very difficult, because in 2016, 44,000 Democrats in Massachusetts unenrolled to be able to vote for Trump in the primary. Donald Trump won the primary in Massachusetts in 2016 with the largest margin of victory until he hit his home state of New York. People understood his message of, putting American manufacturing first, bringing our troops home from endless wars that didn't serve our own country's interests. He talked about building the wall so that we could make sure that immigration was done properly, that people who came to our country came here for the right reasons and came here to become citizens and do it the right way, like their ancestors. So, it was very hard to understand why, and I don't still think I fully grasp why he couldn't see how successful. We ended up having the lowest unemployment in 50 years under President Trump. The economy was booming. The stock markets was doing incredibly well. Businesses were doing incredibly well. And yet, for some reason, he couldn't get behind the president. So, it was baffling then. It baffles me now. But I know that Governor Baker's not running for re-election.
Right.
And so at this point, we're going to move forward and have a Republican governor in office that is going to absolutely stand with candidates, whether it's for the White House or whether it's running for the State House. I want to make sure that I support everybody who wants to be involved in ours and do the civic duty. I'll happily go to events where people are running for select board or school committee or board of health, like I mentioned earlier. But if people want to run for state rep or state senate, I'll happily help them as well. People running for Congress, we've got great candidates that are running for Congress right now. I think that this is a time when Republicans are going to see great gains around the country. 31 Democrats are not running for re-election in Congress right now. So I think we're going to see that Republican message take a strong hold. And it's not just a Republican message. Like I said, it's really a message about just individual freedoms. And that really is not, that crosses both parties. So I'm really looking forward to the next 8 months of this campaign, where I get a chance to go out there and talk to the voters and make sure that they understand that they're going to get someone who has been working for them on Beacon Hill, will continue to work for them on Beacon Hill. Just in this case, in a position where I have a lot more of an ability to deliver on the promises that I make to them, which is giving them more control over their lives.
Who is your lieutenant governor going to be?
Well, we're talking to several people, and the fact of the matter is, we're talking to people who, we're not limiting ourselves to anything. It's not gender specific. It's not,
Right.
It has nothing, ethnicity is not going to play a factor. We are going to pick the right candidate, and we want to make sure that the right candidate who's most qualified is the one who is willing to do this. So it's a process, and we're getting close to, I think, naming somebody, but we're just about a week or so away. But just, I think this is going to be a time where having a strong running mate also is going to be important. It will let people know that I don't think the office of governor is just one person. It is a two-person team that works hard out there to make sure that all of the people of the Commonwealth are listened to. And so that's the kind of person I'm hoping will do it. And you should have that name very soon. So just be a little more patient, and we will have that for you, Brian.
So are you going to hold rallies at all? Like President Trump does? Like 80,000 seat arenas?
Yeah, no, we're actually starting we're doing every week we're going to be holding rallies and events across the state. We're doing a statewide tour, and we're calling it From the Berkshires to Boston. Okay. And we're going to start out in Western Massachusetts, and we're going to continue to hold rallies and big events each time. So people should go to my website, jeffdiehl.com, which is spelled GEOFFDIEHL.com, and you can get more information about the not just the campaign, but about the events that we're doing, and specifically about this rally. Also, our Facebook page will have information about the Berkshires to Boston rallies. So as spring is coming and the weather's warming up, and we're going to be out we're going to be taking tours of businesses. We're going to be talking to municipal leaders, and we're going to be talking to voters at rallies. So yeah, Brian, the timing is exactly right for us to get started, and we've got a great plan in place. It kicks off next week.
So I have a question. I don't know how, but how can I help you out? Well, what can I do to help you out with your campaign? I want to help you in some way, whatever I can. What can I do for
awesome. You? Yeah, no, having me on your show is a huge help, first of all.
Yeah.
But there's also a place on my website. It's a place where you can click to be a volunteer. Okay. So you can check off things under the volunteer boxes. You can check if you want to stuff envelopes or make phone calls or hold signs or collect signatures. You can do a lot of things on the campaign right now. And then we'll have a lot of activities between now and November when the election happens. I'll have debates, so people can go to the debates and cheer for the person that they want to win the debate. So, Brian, there's a million things that can happen between now and November that you can be a part of it. And, go into the website, jeffdiehl.com again is the best way to do that.
That's great. That's great. And again, I said this before, I'll say it again. If you need someone to sing for you, I'd be willing to do that for you, only if you're willing.
Well, there is no event that's not complete without starting out with a great, national anthem and all that. And I know you also do another. What's the other song that you do? Proud to be an American.
Yes.
You have a fantastic version of that as well, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, I've done that one a couple times. And what I want to say to you, Jeff, is you're what I think we need in this state. I think we're too blue. I think we should be more red than we are. And why don't we have a Massachusetts CPAC?
I know, that's a great idea. Well, actually, there's a convention. The Massachusetts Republican Party does have its convention out in Springfield it's on May 21st,
yes,
which is Saturday.
Yep.
And all the activists are going to be out there. And I'm having a party. The Diehl campaign is having a party on Friday night at the Basketball Hall of Fame. And we're going to have great people there. So I would think that, come out to the 20th and 21st in Springfield for the Republican convention, and you will definitely have almost like a CPAC here in Massachusetts, like-minded people who think the way that we do and who, want to help other candidates run for office and get into office. So yeah, that's the start. And then maybe we'll get the Schlapps, Mercedes and Matt Schlapp, to bring CPAC to Massachusetts someday. If they can see great attendance here, I think we could drum up a lot of conservatives. And I think New England folks from Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont and Rhode Island and Connecticut and New York State, they would probably come to Massachusetts if we did CPAC. So that's a great idea, Brian. I think maybe you should help spearhead that too.
But I don't know how I can spearhead that. What? Just get the word out? How do I spearhead that movement?
That's all right. Well, we'll get you involved. We'll talk to the Schlapps and we'll get you involved. That's how it starts.
That would be great. And again, Jeff, you're a great guy. You're a patriot, like all of us are here in this country we live in. And 2022, I think we're gonna have a big victory coming up in November. I know it. As a blind guy, I see it than most people can.
Yeah, you're right. It's a movement that's happening everywhere around the country, and it's happening right here in Massachusetts too. 2010 was a big year. The Tea Party popped up and helped elect a lot of people. We doubled the number of Republicans in the Massachusetts legislature, and I think that we're going to see 22 as just one of those real watershed years where we look back and say, "Wow, what an incredible movement that happened in in this cycle." So yeah, Brian, I mean, you are a fantastic supporter of everything that's going on. I'm proud to call you my friend, and thank you for having me on your show. This has been awesome.
I appreciate that, man. I trust me. I think we'll do it again at some point too, and this won't be the last time for sure. You know what I'm saying? We'll definitely do this again.
Yeah.
And
great.
You've been a great guy, Jeff. And again, you're a patriot. You're my kind of guy, and you are. What do I say? How do I say this? You're a friend for life. And by the way, before I go, Jim Lyons says hello.
Oh,
I forgot to tell you that when we were saying that from the podcast, so I want to give him that message from
Jim. Jim is doing a great job as the leader of the Republican Party here in Massachusetts. So God bless him, God bless you, Brian, and God bless America.
I appreciate this, Jeff. And I'll send this podcast to you on YouTube once it's uploaded. I'll send it to you via email if you'd like, so you can watch it. Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care, Brian.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, man.